Welcome to the selector slide. Like I explained earlier, the selector allows you to target a particular HTML element, call them up in your CSS style sheet, and style them respectively. To style an HTML element in CSS, you have to first of all target that particular element. And there are various ways, and not limited to this list I have here, on how you can select an HTML element. To get started, you'd have the asterisk, which signifies you are trying to select all the elements in the HTML file. Now you can have it this way and your curly braces, and inside of the curly braces you'd get to provide CSS style rules, background color, font text, font size rather, and so many other CSS rules you can apply or you want to apply to it. The next one is using the tag name. Now this selects the name of that element per se. For example, you have the body, you have the h1, you have the paragraph, you have the div, you have the span. Once you've selected using the tag name, it literally means that anywhere this particular tag name is being used, the laid out CSS rule set gets to take effect on it. You also have the class selector. Now when you select an element using the class, it starts with a period. Now the value of the class attribute you provided, that is what you're going to use to select this. And the CSS classes allows you to have multiple elements that you want to style. So assuming you have like a card design and you want to reproduce the same thing over and over again, having just the user image reused in multiple places means you still want the CSS rule set to be applicable in those places you want it displayed. Using an ID to select an element, you start first of all by having the pound or hash, then the attribute value of the ID in your HTML element, followed by the curly braces where you get to outline the set of the CSS rule set that you want to take effect on that particular element. You also have the attribute selector, which basically selects a particular attribute as it's found in the opening tag of the element. So meaning that any element that has that same attribute inside of it gets selected and the CSS rule set is being applied to it. You have the likes of href when you're trying to deal with your anchor reference tag. You have the src, meaning anywhere you have the src, for instance, where you have the image, you'd get to select every element that has the attribute src. You also have the width, which signifies that any element that has the width attribute would get selected automatically. Now you have the pseudo class. Now this pseudo class targets the special state of an element. For instance, if you are developing for an HTML link, when you hover with your mouse over that particular link, it's going to give you a special state called hovering. If you click on a link, it's going to give you that special state called visited. Sorry, if you visit an element rather, if you visit a link, it's going to give you that special state called visited. But if you're clicking on a button, for instance, it means you are actively clicking on that particular button, so it gives you the special state of active on that particular button. And once you've attached your CSS code to this particular special state, you'd get to give it a special style. Do you want to change the background color? Do you want to change the font size? Do you want to change the text or anything at all? When you're talking about the pseudo element selection mode, just like the pseudo class, the pseudo element selects special parts of the element. Now notice the difference between one of the visual differences between the pseudo class and the pseudo element. The pseudo class has just one colon, while the pseudo element has double colon. And with this, I'm trying to select the first line of a div, or I could select the first letter of a div, or I could select the after display of a div, or select the before display of a div. And inside of our curly braces would get to render several styles that we wish to have in that particular element. So in the next slide, we'll get to talk about the CSS unit and the various measuring units we can use in CSS.